The HTC One X and the Samsung Galaxy S3 are two of the finest phones ever crafted in the history of smartphone technology. But we want to definitively know which phone is deserving of the title of being the flagship Android smartphone for the year 2012 thus far. I'm going to put these two beastly phones through a series of comparison tests regarding the displays, battery life, performance, software, the call quality, and more to see which one is deserving of the title of being the Android flagship for 2012 thus far. Let's get into it. So taking a look at the displays here, we see they both utilize a 720p HD panel, but they differ in their display technologies. The HTC One X has a Super LCD2 IPS display, while the Samsung Galaxy S3 utilizes a more tried and true HD Super AMOLED display. Now, because the One X is utilizing a LCD IPS display, it is just sharper, brighter, and the colors are more accurate to real life than it is on the Samsung AMOLED display. You're also going to get what I call infinite viewing angles because no matter how far you tilt the phone, there is absolutely zero distortion in the screen's quality. It stays pretty much perfect as far as the eye can see, no matter how far you tilt it, which is pretty amazing. And it looks like the icons are kind of floating on the glass on the One X, which is unlike any phone that I've seen previously. Meanwhile, the Galaxy S3 has true black colors, so a trait of OLED panels is that when you're on a black background or a black color, the pixels just don't turn on. So instead of getting a grayish lit up black color, you're going to get a true black color, which is very nice. And you're also going to get much higher contrast on the AMOLED display on the Samsung Galaxy S3. Now the S3's AMOLED display is using a pin-tile matrix. Now what does that mean? It means that the pixel layout is red, green, blue, green. You get twice as many green pixels as you do red or blue pixels, and this may distort edges or white colors more than you would see on a traditional RGB display like in the HTC One X here. Another key factor about these two displays here on the One X and the S3 is that because the One X is a lot brighter than the S3, outdoor visibility is also much better on the One X than it is on the S3. And for me, this is a huge key factor because I'm outside a lot during the day, and if I can't read my phone, then it's just really annoying. And the S3 just gets really washed out, and it's really hard to read it without putting your hand over the display to block out that sunlight. So overall, as far as the displays are concerned, the winner is hands down the HTC One X. It is the best display available on a smartphone right now. Now, the S3's display isn't bad by any means. It's still a really good display and is a solid improvement over the Galaxy Nexus. But if you're looking to get the best display period on a smartphone, then you may want to consider the HTC One X. Now, another very controversial topic between the Samsung Galaxy S3 and the HTC One X is, of course, the design and the build quality of these two handsets. Ever since the S3 was first announced, it seems like there's just been a massive war in forums and YouTube video comments between these two phones in this category here. It's very interesting. Now, the exteriors on both phones are made primarily out of plastic. The HTC One X has a polycarbonate finish to it, which feels very nice in the hand, whereas the Samsung Galaxy S3 has a more Samsung-y glossy finish to it, which Samsung now calls hyperglaze, go figure. And underneath said hyperglaze is apparently a polycarbonate material. Now, do we know if this is true or not? No, because we can't see it or feel it. And overall, I must say that the One X just has better craftsmanship and feels like a more premium, well-built phone than the Samsung Galaxy S3 does. The S3 is Samsung's flagship phone for the next year or so, but you don't really get that sense when you hold the phone in your hand, whereas almost immediately when you hold the One X, you just feel like, damn, like HTC went the full mile here and put forth all their energy into making a beautiful, well-built phone. But despite being the more premium handset, the Galaxy S3 is by far the more comfortable phone to hold in your hand. It's just more contoured and more ergonomic than the One X is. And somehow these ergonomics make the S3 feel smaller in the hand than the One X does. So even though you're holding a gargantuan 4.8-inch phone, it feels very small. Actually, it feels like a 4.3-inch phone because it's so ergonomic. So this is a very key factor here. Whether you want the ergonomics or you want the premium finish on the One X and the better craftsmanship. Now, the design is a very subjective matter here, but I prefer the way the One X looks over the S3. Again, it feels like HTC went the full mile here and tried to give us a truly unique looking handset and it just looks stunning when you first see it. Even now, after about almost 2 months here, I am still amazed by how well the phone looks. Now, on the flip side, the S3 isn't a bad-looking phone by any means, but you can tell that Samsung was more conservative with the overall look and the shape of the phone, and they really didn't try to push any boundaries as far as phone design is concerned. Now again, both phones do look good in their own respective ways, but it really depends on your own taste as far as which phone is the better looking handset. That's really a subjective, opinionated matter. Now again, I think the One X is the better looking handset, and I think it's also the more premium, well-built handset as well. Now the S3 has the advantage of being the more ergonomic, more comfortable phone to hold in your hand, and this leads to the handset feeling smaller somehow than the HTC One X does. And that may be a pretty important factor to you. Next up, we have performance. If you're going to shell out a couple $100 for a brand new smartphone, you want to make sure it doesn't lag or freeze up during everyday, basic, normal tasks. And I will say hands down, the Galaxy S3 is the fastest and most fluid Android phone that I have ever used, including the Galaxy Note, the Galaxy Nexus, the One X. The S3 is just the fastest and most fluid Android phone that I've ever used, and I can't even try to debate about this. It's just really obvious. And the touchscreen is the most responsive that I've ever used as well. So people always cite the iPhone as being so responsive to the touch, but I challenge you by saying that the Galaxy S3 is more responsive than the iPhone is. It's just almost a 1-to-1 touch to movement ratio with the touchscreen here. When you touch that screen, it moves almost immediately with your finger. Whereas the typical Android phone would have like a half-second delay that is almost unnoticeable, but as someone who reviews a lot of phones, I do notice that half-second delay, and that delay just isn't present on the Galaxy S3. Not to say the One X is a slouch, but in comparison, after about 2 months of using the One X on a day-to-day basis here, it stutters quite a bit more than the Samsung Galaxy S3 does. And I don't know if it's because of the hardware or the lack of RAM, or if it's because of Sense, or all the above, but it just isn't as smooth as the S3 is, and it's really getting annoying now because, again, these phones both have identical hardware. They both have 1.5 gigahertz, at least on AT&T in the US here, 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon S4 CPUs. The One X has 1 gigabyte of RAM, whereas the S3 has 2 gigabytes of RAM, which is the first for a smartphone and is pretty badass. There really should not be a huge difference in performance between these two handsets here, but there is, and it is quite annoying. Even doing basic stuff like opening up the app drawer on the One X just lags, and it's so silly. Like, these issues have been on HTC phones for some time now, for over a year now, and HTC has failed to resolve even the most basic issues in the software here, and it is just incredibly annoying, and it shouldn't be taking this long. Taking this even further, the AT&T One X has crippled multitasking. So if you're used to an Android 4.0 device and you want to use that recent apps functionality to jump between your apps, the One X basically cannot do that. Even though that button is on the phone itself, it can't function as a multitasking smartphone at all. It is just terrible at doing that. If you're in, let's say, Facebook and you're typing out a status, but you get a phone call, then you go back to Facebook, that status is gone. It completely refreshes and it loses everything you did in that app at that current moment in time. It is just silly. And to make matters worse, HTC pretty much denied the existence of this issue, but every single person who owns this phone on AT&T has this issue. But I've heard that the phone internationally does not have this problem, and it only exists on the AT&T variant, so maybe there's an OTA software update coming, I don't know. But as of right now, this phone is not able to multitask very well at all. But on the flip side again, with the S3 with 2 gigabytes of RAM, I can bring up an app that I haven't opened in 3 or 4 days, and it will go back to the exact same location in that app and not have to refresh itself. And it basically just works the way it should. Now, taking a look at the software here, and not the performance, I greatly prefer Sense to TouchWiz. TouchWiz, again, feels just really cartoony, and the overall design language of TouchWiz is almost the exact same as it was during Gingerbread. And we all know that there was a huge leap taken as far as design goes from 2.3 to 4.0 on Android, but in Samsung's TouchWiz, you don't get any of that added functionality with the UI here. It is just the same old TouchWiz from Android 2.3. Whereas HTC Sense is the more premium, exquisite, just more customizable software suite when compared to Samsung's TouchWiz. It just feels like a more premium piece of software, and it's just elegant to look at, And as far as the UI goes, it matches or exceeds iOS as far as being a nice, elegant looking UI. I still wish there was an option to completely disable these launchers on these two phones here and run with stock Android if you wanted to out of the box. But alas, we can't do that. And if you want to get the best experience out of the box as far as software goes, then you may want to look at the One X over the S3. But if performance is your big key factor here, then the S3 just completely trumps the One X and is by far the fastest Android phone on the planet right now. Battery life on both handsets has been very good, and I'm glad that Android is finally at the point where we can have these really powerful phones that last all day with 4G LTE on a single charge. The battery in the One X is rated at about 1800 milliamp hours, and the one in the Galaxy S3 is at about 2100 milliamp hours. So you would assume that because the battery in the S3 is bigger, that it must have superior battery life. But I've actually found quite the opposite. I found that the battery on the One X can give you about 4 to 5 hours of on-screen time consistently per day. And this doesn't include gaming, but it does include 4 to 5 email accounts syncing, emailing, phone calls, Twitter, news sites and stuff like that, YouTube videos, but not gaming. And under those same circumstances with the Galaxy S3, I've gotten about 3 to 4 hours of on-screen time. So about an hour less on average on the Galaxy S3 compared to the HTC One X. I've also found that the standby time on the One X is superior than the Galaxy S3 is. On standby, it just doesn't lose any charge, whereas the S3 will lose you maybe 1% or 2% every hour. But over the course of 5-6 hours, that is almost 10+% charge lost over that time frame. But the Galaxy S3 has a removable battery, so if you want to buy a secondary backup battery made by Samsung, you can go ahead and do that. So now you have 2 batteries that can give you 3 to 4 hours of on-screen time per day. So in essence, you will never be without a charge in this phone with the Galaxy S3, whereas on the One X, you're pretty much limited to the battery just in the phone out of the box. Samsung phones usually almost always have impressive call quality, and the S3 is no exception. It has really good call quality. The One X is at a close second to the S3, but the S3 just has phenomenal call quality, and the audio just sounds crystal clear. Now jumping to the last comparison test here, both phones utilize 8 megapixel cameras that can record video in 1080p HD. However, the camera on the HTC One X has a higher aperture at f2.6 compared to the Galaxy S3's f2.0. Now what does that mean? It's going to let more light into the lens, so on the One X you're going to get superior low light performance in video and in pictures than you get on the Galaxy S3. But the S3 produces more consistently good results than the HTC One X does. So go ahead and watch these picture and video clips and let me know down below in a comment which device you thought had the superior camera and video recording. So I must say that was a pretty epic battle between the Samsung Galaxy S3 and HTC's One X. And regardless of which phone you choose, again, you are still getting one of the two finest phones ever made in the history of smartphone technology. They both have amazingly fast processors, 4G LTE, all-day battery life, and amazing displays. However, there can only be one winner and one phone deserving of the title of the flagship Android phone for the year 2012 thus far. And the winner is, drumroll please, the Samsung Galaxy S3. Now, why did the Samsung Galaxy S3 win? For two main reasons. The first reason being that the Galaxy S brand is now a worldwide recognized brand. No matter really where you go in the world now, you will see some advertisement somewhere of this device, whether it's Egypt, Iceland, it can be Russia, China, Japan, Korea, or even Canada. You will see this phone there in some way, shape, or form, which is very amazing considering this is an Android phone and not the iPhone. Now, the second main reason is because, again, no matter where you go, you are getting the exact same device. So you're not going to have 20 different variants of the Galaxy S3. If you go to T-Mobile, US Cellular, Verizon, AT&T, or Sprint, or Vodafone, or Rogers, or even T-Mobile in the UK, you are getting the exact same device, and that is great for accessories like docks, cases, and stuff like that. Whereas the HTC One X does not have that luxury. The design between the AT&T variant and the international model is just a tiny bit different, and that small difference will make any kind of cases or docks incompatible between these two variants, which is a huge blow in my opinion to owning the HTC One X. Now, I will still be carrying the HTC One X as my daily driver just for my own personal preferences because I prefer the amazing display, the amazing build quality, the Sense software, and the better battery life to the pros of the Samsung Galaxy S3. Now, your opinions may differ, and that is perfectly okay. Why? Because these are two of the best phones ever crafted in the history of technology, and that is all that matters. But I hope you guys enjoyed this epic comparison between the Samsung Galaxy S3 and HTC's One X. Go ahead and drop me a comment down below as always. Give this video a thumbs up, follow me, and I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching. I'm out.